All right, so let's take a look at a couple of examples here. So a rocket just after launch, and again, we're just working with vertical motion at this point. So the rocket will be a dot. There would always be weight pointing downward. I like to just label that mg right away. Usually I'm going to have to calculate it from a mass. And then if it's just after launch, there must be a bigger upward force than a downward force. And we would probably classify that as an applied force. If I have an elevator that's coming to a stop at ground level, so it's coming to a stop and its motion is downward, so I would be thinking about down as my positive direction. There must be less force down than up if the object is coming to a stop, if it's slowing down. And so the weight is still going to be down here, but some sort of upward force. In this case, since it's an elevator, I'd probably think of it as a tension force or a cable. It's possible that there's some friction, but the problem doesn't really specifically mention it, so I would not include it in my picture. If I have a person in an elevator that's heading down from the top floor, they must be beginning to accelerate from that top floor, so there must be more force down than up. Again, I have weight pointing down, and since it's a person in an elevator, the upward force on that person would be the normal force, a force of a surface on the object. A ball held by a person at constant speed, very important phrase. I usually circle it as I'm working to make sure I don't forget. That indicates that the forces must balance. So I'm going to try to draw those forces to be the same length. I might even mark them like this with congruent marks to indicate that they truly are equal to each other. Again, vertical forces I'm working with, so I'm going to have that weight force down. And then since this ball is being held, I could call that an applied force, or if you wanted to call it a normal force, you could. A ball that's up in the air, meaning it's not being thrown, it's not being pushed or pulled or anything, only has the gravitational force on it. And since it's ideal in this situation, we're not going to worry about air resistance or air drag. But if I have a skydiver that's in free fall, there's going to be that downward force, the person's weight, and then there's going to be some sort of a drag force against it. Again, you'll have some sort of indication when you should include that drag force, some indication that it's a realistic problem or the drag force will be specifically mentioned.